All right. I think we're live. Welcome. Welcome. Are you not entertained? Um, so some inspired things from last night's stream actually came through and just helped to position reality in this new way. So I guess just for a minute, as people get a chance to come on, um, the, if we're in a darker space, this in our consciousness, if we're going through hard things right now that are really hard for us, this is both one of the solutions to that, but also one of the harder reality frameworks, sort of to embrace because of the pain that we might be feeling. So I want to just preface all of this with that, with just by saying, um, things happen in reality that are sorrowful. There is suffering. The Buddha said life is suffering. What I'm trying to do is say, yes, but we can then transcend the suffering to observe life as a beautiful game. And, I just had this quote given to me by this numerology app, which I love. But it says, life is entertainment. I want to experience it and share it with others. And I had, it's just funny the synchronicities, right? But that's what this is. Life is meant to be a story played out, which I talked about last night's stream. If you haven't seen that, it's I think it's a pretty good one. And so, if life is entertainment, life's a game. We notice that this cycling of that actually moves continuously. First, we're children. We learn to play the children game, the game as the children. And then we move into a space of learning how to play the game as like a teenager and then an adult and all these things. And so we end up constantly moving through this. And in fact, this is happening day to day. In truth, moment to moment, now infinitely. Right? Um, and this is sort of what they talk about as the matrix, right? This is the matrix of reality. It has rules in it that people have created, different rules. And when you break or bend these rules, sometimes there are consequences here. Sometimes there's things that people don't want us doing, right? So those are the rules of the reality, which can be bent and broken as to our will and what we do, right? We make those choices, so to speak. But there's also metaphysical and universal laws that's just how reality is. These things are not broken. They're not even really bent. They're just that's what is. Um, when we start to learn some of these laws about law of attraction and how manifestation works, and we start to learn of the soul story and stuff, we start to realize, okay, I can frame myself as a character in a video game. I'm collecting sort of skills as I go. I'm leveling that up and doing these types of things. And of course that may not resonate with everyone, but why do humans play games? Why do we even play games? It's because we're not in a drama. So we are in a drama usually for a time, a theater of sorts. And what I'm offering is that we can see it more like a game and still be invested in what's going on, but not wrapped up in the dramatic up and down of the polarity exchange that happens in dramas. This rising crescendo of this what do they call the conflict, the main conflict, whatever it is. Um, this risingness and then falling and rising and falling doesn't actually have to be that way. It doesn't have to be that way. It's our perception that discerns this for us. And so the game then shifts into this new game where a lot of us are just stepping feet into or have been for a long time and aren't sure. And so some of us are here to help guide that. And so the way it was shown to me in vision this morning was literally the arc, like the arc. All the people are different embodied types of souls. We could even say almost types of animals, different people that awaken to their soul and climb onto the ark based on the people that are already on the ark, or souls already on the ark, putting the ladder down and saying, which you could call Jacob's ladder even. They're climbing up this ladder to this ark. And then some people on the ark go, I know what we're going to do. I'm the king of the world. And magically, they just fall off the ark into the ocean. And we don't know where they went. They're not there anymore. Next thing you know, someone pops out of the ocean and we throw the ladder down for them and they climb back up. That's kind of how this 5D or collective consciousness frequency operates. You're on the ship, then you might fall off it, then you're on it, and so the goal is sort of to stay on the ship with the crew and the family and the friends, and it's all of our family and friends that maybe aren't on the ship yet. And we can get really like, oh, I got to get them on the ship, I got to get them with us, and we can't really do that. So all we can really do is party on the ship, so to speak. That's all we can really do. That's what I try to recommend doing, while also having compassionate ears and a compassionate heart for people that are suffering in any way. And then also recognizing that even still in this state, we will still have sorrowful, suffering type experiences. That's part of the game. Part of the game is that. And that experience can be sweet. There's a sweetness in the sorrow. And when we find the sweetness in the sorrow, it doesn't mean we look for sorrow, but when we find it, when we find it arise in us, we know that it's for our best, but also we can feel the sweetness in this sorrow, the love that's in that, where that the origin of all that sorrow is love, right? We can feel that. So that is what helps us to be okay. Now, being okay when others don't feel okay makes them unsettled a lot of times. So you want to try to hang around generally people that also feel okay. Most people don't feel okay. Unfortunately, not all the time. Right? So it becomes this wobbling act, right? As we're dealing with relationships, and sometimes they're this way, other times they're this way, and I'm this way, and then they're this way, and it's a bit of a weird thing that happens between. But you'll also find people that doesn't really happen, right? And that it's not anything about the relationship necessarily. It's just that there's a certain resonance in frequency that they just agree about things generally. They just agree with each other about it, pretty much everything, and expand each other. And that's really all they do. But if we look at it as a game and we think of ourselves as not the controller of the game, this is what we call in my order the delusion of control. We only control the way our character perceives, how they choose to perceive and navigate the world, which is why reframing reality in a contextual way that takes the content of reality and frames it in a way that really makes your heart sing, that makes life exciting for you, that makes it worth doing, that gets out of some of the nihilistic view of nothing matters, God is dead, which, is a justified claim. Like when one of my favorite bands and my best friend, Rhodey and Protest the Hero, they made this song, and in the song it says someone plunged a dagger deep into God's chest, and when he groaned, it laid our entire civilization to rest. And I think of that. And what we're seeing now is the expansion of what God could be into more truth. So it's not that anyone could actually do that to God, and God's in fury and anger. That's not what it's about to me. But it's about our own dismissal of that force in us, that power in us, and our connection to it, the love that's already there in us. That's what it represents. That what we've done to ourselves, really, right? We plunge our own dagger into our own heart, and then we bleed into our civilization. That's what we do. as people. And so when we step out of that and go, yeah, that's not for me, so what do I do? Well, now you figure out what game you're playing. You figure out what's your game, what entices you, what inspires you. Where do you want to grow? What do you want to learn? Life's primarily about learning and loving and learning and loving. It's about what it's about, more or less. And then I advocate these types of ways because they tend to bring peace. They tend to facilitate peace as we navigate the bumpier things. So it's not minimizing suffering, because when we get to these states that I'm talking about, we usually kind of pop out and we're like, what was all that about? It's kind of weird that I was so upset. I think I was upset about a lot of stuff. It starts to just slip off of us. Yeah, excuse me. Slip off of us that way. But when it's on us still, when it's still stuck in us and we're not feeling good, we have trouble seeing the goodness and the excitement and the entertainment. And, that's why I started with this. Are you not entertained? Like, why do we even watch the news, for example? If you talk to people, a lot of people, they're like, it's just, I'm kind of bored. And it's a lot of stuff going on, right? There's some stuff like that, right? They find it interesting, it entertains them a bit, but also sometimes gets them afraid and riles them up, and they're not necessarily aware of the subconscious things going on from watching it. But if we are aware of those things, we can watch it without being affected as well. So there's no actual right or wrong to watching it or observing it. We can observe anything non-polarized in neutrality and just be like, I see this for what it is. This is a bunch of people talking about stuff that, just isn't seeming to really be true or real. Okay. It's just a reality show, really, right? It's no different than The Bachelor or something. Really, right? It's real people, real lives, Judge Judy, or whatever her slogan thing was. But that's what it is, really, right? And it affects so many people. It seemingly has power over so many people. It's seeming that way. And I live in a country where it seems that way too. But when we return sort of to the teachings of the Christ, which is just live in the world and not of it, that the others only have the power over me that God has granted them, which is no power over me. You don't have power over me. We are equal in power, regardless of what you've fashioned yourself as. Was the teaching equality, right? It's not about raising up, oh, I'm against you because you have a rule. It's about you can have your rule for you if you want. And if I break your rule in your house, then, that's my bad. But did you tell me about your rule too? Because that's the only thing, right? So Jesus always asked and said, what laws am I breaking and things? Because he knew that you're in this box of a society and you don't have to be in that. Your game could be to live in a forest somewhere and just live off the earth, or maybe make a little community or something. I'm going to move my phone because it's just going bananas. You live in a little community, something like that. And yeah, I mean, it's not necessarily going to be simple or easy to just uproot and do that. And maybe there's so many reasons you don't want to or can't or something. Maybe your soul kind of yearns for that. Sometimes that's the soul has done that already and like loved it. So it thinks like it might start to pull a bit that way. Be like, remember that? And then you think about it and dream about it a little bit, and don't let go of any visions for the future, but don't hang on to them either, and just let things go naturally is my general recommendation, because you'll just find that probably one day you'll just end up in that type of environment, and it will be fine. It'll be great. It'll be perfect somehow, some way. These things tend to come about, but not usually to our expectations. So Yahe says, "Thank you, Sean, for bringing knowledge to my starseed journey during my spiritual awakening." Oh, you're welcome. You're welcome. Thank you for coming. It's my pleasure. Namaste. Johanna says, "Hello, hello." Yeah, if anyone has any comments or any thoughts about anything I'm saying, please feel free to add to or ask questions, whatever. I'd like to try to make it interactive and address whatever's coming up. Makes it more interesting, more freestyled, more contextual to the frequency of now, right? It's more now. Whenever we have more now, I think is good. So, as we navigate this, instead of having a dramatic game, we're having a fun game. It's not fun. It's the drama of it is fun, like as well. Like, isn't it interesting? Isn't it fun and interesting how dramatic things are for me right now? I'm supposed to be an infinite being of light, yet, I just got a ticket for speeding. What on earth is happening? I'm an infinite being of light, but I can't find the bathroom, and I might urinate myself. As an adult, I might. These things, very weird, right? So all we can kind of do is laugh at them, because in truth, it's a true hypocritical type of position we've put ourselves in. So we're all sort of having to embrace that we're a little bit of hypocrites here right now, where we want to claim the divinity knowing it is, yet clearly there's things that obstruct that and push against that and oppress that. Even just the physical reality itself kind of just says, no, reminder, you can feel this. Reminder, you've walked into a wall or you've bumped your elbow. Reminder, you're itchy. Reminder, you're here, right? Which is great for us because we need to be here. Otherwise, we wouldn't be here, right? That's what the purpose of that type of stuff, some of it is. It's like it's always relevant as well. So if your character is like, for example, let's look at Dan Millman in The Way of the Peaceful Warrior. He talks about how basically he got very egoic and passionate about his passionately egoic, I guess, or powerfully egoic about his getting better at gymnastics. And he became self-inflated. And that wasn't his soul's mission. So what you'll find is, and he doesn't say this in the book, but this is what you will find is that the vehicle becomes disabled. You see it as well in the president, who his legs started to not work properly. These things happen. So Dan got in a car accident, or with his motorcycle, and basically busted everything up. And then he went to his master, the teacher guy, to help him with that and all these things. And it's a beautiful, beautiful story. Beautiful story. Between him and Socrates. It's a beautiful book. But that's what happens, is something disables us from walking the path the way we were walking it, right? That's often the legs. In a masculine, it's often the legs because the legs sort of signify the doingness, the goingness of things, like going from place to place and doing thing to thing. Very masculine task, right? Energetically speaking. And so when we get overpowered, like we will be humbled. If the soul is not wanting to experience that power hungriness right now, if that's not a part of that, then there has to be corrective action taken to readjust where we're going. That's kind of what these things are that happen. They're lessons, and that's why we feel these things. And so it just becomes really interesting and funny and absurd even to observe reality, because you realize that, like, just anything that you look at is not what you think it is. So we have to start to frame it in some way. We have to reframe it, because our foundational understanding of what could be real is gone. It's just gone. So we have to choose something. We have to choose a way to perceive, and we will generally want to choose a framework of how it works a bit, which is why I talk about it like a game, with preceding levels and preceding bosses of opposition, seeming bosses that oppose us from getting to the next level. These are our inner barriers. So we want to understand sort of the construction of that framework, and then also we can then call it and flavor it however we wish with whatever mythos of the soul that we feel, like, that I talked about in the last stream. Whatever resonates with us and brings us into harmony with what feels to be our soul's truth. So even for me, it's almost silly, but it's I come from the goddess. Her name is the goddess of snow, Calais, and Snow from Game of Thrones, Jon Snow. When he becomes humble and knows nothing, like this is sort of the tale of my arrogant intellectual type discourse that eventually became still confident, but also humble in the I know nothing sort of thing. And we start to pick up these stories with ourselves and feel them much more deeply. And then we can go, okay, well, if I'm partly this type of character, then what other types of characters might I be also? Like I'm obviously a wizard, and I'm, I use that term specifically because it's the fun one, and it means wise one, which means one who knows nothing. So, it's this wandering kind of old dude who he's seen a bunch of stuff. That's kind of the character I am. And it's we don't really pick and choose it so much. It just kind of starts to fall into place naturally. That's what the soul recovery and the fragmentation process is, really. It's discovering the fragmentations that happened when we exited the birth canal as the fool. And we can't see the other fragments behind us, so we have to go find them. And we find them in the 72 and the 72 angels and the 72 demons of the Ars Goetia. Those are just, that's a good framework to look at. But you'll see these characters everywhere. And so you can make relationships with whatever characters that in reality or in the mythos of the world, the ancients, the stars, you see the same archetypal roles playing out. And then you can bring these beings in with you and chill with them, learn of their tales, and that type of thing. That's what we tend to call building the temple and building the kingdom. It's like populating the kingdom of heaven within you is really how I see that. Literally letting spirits live in you, with you, to help guide you in their ancient ways and stuff. That's the way I'm going. And it has been just a delicious treat, honestly. Delicious. But we can go anyway, and we can choose not to do any of that. That can just seem like weird to us. Right? Wizard. I love it. Wizard. Sending hugs. Yeah, I actually think the frame is what's the next card in the tarot, right? The Magician. That's what a human is. Human. Light manifesting. Man. Light man. Hue, right? That's what we are, these light workers. That's what a human is. Way back when there were this sort of people were starting to get a little bit elite look feeling, they would call us humanimals. Humanimals, because they needed to distinguish that, like, they are basically like animals right now. It was important for them to notice that they are other than us as consciousness. They were a little bit confused about that as well, which led to a whole bunch of cool stuff and other stuff that wasn't so cool, probably. But that's the entertainment and the game of it all, really is the opposing forces of positive and negative polarity and light and dark. And in the sixth density, we transcend all of that. And that's usually happens when the blue ray here opens, is really open. And then this is open and the heart's open. And then we can really see. You can't actually get to sixth density consciousness, which is the pure unity consciousness, without with having any judgment of anything. And that doesn't mean that that's the place that everyone has to be. It's just the place that has the more neutrality, peaceful neutrality of like, yeah, you know. And so it's not for everyone. This is for particular types of people that they just see conflict as kind of silly in itself. The whole idea of conflict is a little silly. To conflict with what? What are we conflicting with? Who's conflicting? Doesn't make any sense. It's not something that we can understand. So we have to see it as a way of like, consciousness is in this clowning around with itself. Basically here. That's what's happening. It's clowning around, playing tricks on itself, wearing disguises here. It's a strange thing. I don't think it's super common to have it like this. All these really powerful beings running around pretending to be different things, spooky things, and like actually doing stuff about those things. It's weird. It's a little weird. But it's not that weird because it's all infinite, right? So, of course, it's something like this. And sometimes it's more harmonious on a planet moving into this density. And other times it's more mixed. It's more tumultuous and it's more bouncy. And, you know, we see humanity now replaying what happened in the 1930s, like the late 1930s. Look at that, you know, we just look at that stuff and we're like, well, I think we've seen this before, you know, and it's just a big kind of game that affects people, but it doesn't affect the spirit. That's where we want to try to sit. The spirit doesn't get affected by these things. Isn't it really interesting how much my person feels affected? My human feels really affected. Start to think of our humans almost as our loved pets. Even has helped me a lot when I was going through this stage. It's not quite accurate, but it helps to build this companionship and this compassion for the feelings of that's generated by the ego that you have to dismiss lovingly without resistance of. It's almost like you have a child in you, and this is very typical. You'll hear a lot of people that do inner child work talk about this. You almost have this little crying child within you that's just constantly doing that. And we're just like, shut up, shut up. But we need to be more like, tell me about it. Tell me all about it. Let it out. And hear it into our heart. And when we do that, finally, it can happen just in a split second. It can happen in just a mere moment of like, yeah, fine, tell me, fine. But we don't want to do it like that. We want to just be like, we want to be totally open. There's stuff here that's trying to come that I'm not hearing because I'm avoiding my own traumas. And that's okay. What I try to teach is that those traumas are not what you are. So you can immediately just let all of them go. All of them. They can all just fall away into the dream they were. It is the time to do that if we want. I advocate for it, but I don't pressure to do it, if that makes sense. This is just my recommendation, you could say. James says, this reality is so fucking confusing. All these teachings like Kabbalah, Law of One, or other channelings, Edgar Cayce and whatnot, have truths in them than fundamentally differing core topics, like who built the pyramids. That's why I have a hard time discerning anything I come across. I can't help but ultimately look at this reality as a game. Yeah, it's a mind. The best way that I can help with that, James, is the mind basically just makes up whatever it wants to describe what it's experiencing. So every individual being that engages with channeled material in any way has a different type of experience with that and a different relationship with that, and it comes out differently. But it's all the same thing. It's the Holy Ghost, the Holy Spirit, the Spirit inhabiting the frame to a degree to let these things out. In some cases, it's in like the Law of One. I know more about that particular experience. That was an actual entity moving into a trance state, suspending their personality, consciousness, and soul, allowing another to occupy the vehicle to speak through, and the other was raw. Now, the other wasn't really an other, of course. And the who knows about, like you said, people say different stuff about the pyramids. The pyramids have been built many times as well. Like this, we've done this a lot, so we don't know when they're talking about as well. And the visions that psychics get, maybe even seeing other planets, they think it's ours. Like it's like you said, it's all just right. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. And that's why Ra always says in the Law of One, right? He says none of these things are, like, you're asking questions that are of no importance at all. That's how you can tell that that's the truth of the matter. The book itself calibrates fairly low on the consciousness scale because of the questions that are getting in there from the experiences that the people are having that were self-manifested calls for other entities to be oppositional to them. So it's a tale in itself of a game being played with high density adept magic work, which eventually ended in Don's taking his own life. So that's why I say that these things are, we have to balance it and realize we are doing it. We are doing it. That's what some of them had challenge with a little bit, I think. I'm just speculating. It may seem like gossip, but I'm really actually so indebted to that entire group. I feel I cry when I read that book. And it's not a very cry type book, but I do. Because I know what they went through. So but that all of that stuff is us manifesting our oppositions to our own peace. We call it in, and yeah, there's other entities that want to like do that, but they have to be called in. They call themselves in based on where the weakness lay, more or less. So yeah, we have to look at truth as there's a truth of God, which is just all, everything, all, and it begins and ends in mysteries. I don't know. That's the truth of God, is I don't know at this stage of my consciousness. I don't know quite what that means. It means love. It means peace. It means harmony. The other things couldn't be of God. So we're in some type of dysfunctional, disorderly type hypocritical illusion that we made. And the way I like to frame this is actually that, and this is true, this is why we have it this way. The physical reality, including the vessel, is masculine, but the Holy Spirit is feminine, the Divine Mother. It's the entire creation is actually her whole womb. And that's the spirit that invests everything, is this, and then the physicality of it is the Father's contribution. Excuse me. So she's in everything whispering, wake up, come on home whenever you're ready. And so we get to a place in our seeking where we're just consuming. And then we realize it's more about feeling into more about myself and how I fit into the new kingdom that I'm ready to build for myself and for my family and for all the people around me and the souls here, right? What is my purpose for being? What am I to do with myself? It took me 3 years of sitting around to figure that out. So that's what I recommend. Figure it out. Figure out what your heart wants to do and try to do that in a pure and passionate way. And that's the game, right? That's the game. And then in the game, you have these different battles. Some of them are like in an intellectual battle, where your just mind can't get around a certain thing you learn. Some of them show up as your boss that just won't let you be the good employee you are. He just won't let you because he has to just keep making sure you know that you're not quite good enough or whatever. It shows up in so many different ways. If you're in magic work, it might show up as you like running into some wacky thing in the astral, being like, "Ah, what are you?" It's like a Balrog or something, right? Thou shalt not pass. Or you want to start looking into the secret fire. You know, it ends up being just a lovely mystery RPG game. Really is, I think, actually quite a healthy way to navigate it after the awakening process really begins. And I don't know if therapists would like that or not, but I think it's a very positive framing. And it's not denying the things that happen, it's embracing the things that happen, embracing life for what it is. Like, there's a plan here that I'm not privy to that's happening, and it's gotta be the way, whatever this is. So obviously, I'm here, I'm doing what I'm doing. Maybe what I'm doing doesn't feel like I'm doing a lot, but maybe what I'm doing is just trying to process so I can feel eventually better to do more. And, you know, our society loves doing. Everyone do everything, right? Meditate for at least 8 hours a day. Otherwise, you're going to hell, right? Like, it's just, I made it obviously ridiculous, but all of that stricture is the same ridiculousness, is what I'm trying to highlight. I must do this every day to be at peace. You know, these attachments, they're going to get questioned eventually. Why must you do that? And it's okay to feel like I must. Like, we must do. I have a bunch of these things that I basically must do to just get myself into a state to even do this stream. I had to pray for, I did about 10 minutes of like prayer. It was crying. It was beautiful. I do that to try to bring a certain type of pureness as best I can. So we have these things and they're great. They're also just a game or just an illusion of things. It's like, that's what seems to be what I have to kind of do right now to get to the state I'd like to be in to do the stream, you know? So we end up just developing whatever that is. And then some of those things, we realize we don't need them. That's just here. There's nothing to like do. It starts to be like boom, boom. And I have periods that are like that, and then periods that are more like this where I have to like really get into it. And it really, honestly, it seems to relate to when I'm deciding to fast or not. And I say deciding, but when I fast, it's literally I just stop eating. I don't think about it at all. It just stops happening. I you know, I used to weigh like 200 pounds or so. I think when I was in Nashville, I weighed myself at Tassel's house, and I was like 199 or something. And now I weigh like 142. It's just because I don't really eat that much. But then some days I eat like an absolute animal. I just eat all day. I have no idea what's going on. And then, you know, so we feel like we're choosing these things, but what's really happening is the soul's making sure that the thing that we need to do to cleanse or do whatever the thing is for the body that's healing itself, and the soul that's healing, not the soul healing itself, but the human and soul merging that's happening, and opening up, the body needs to do certain things, perhaps, like not eat. And then we make an excuse. Oh, I'm going to lose weight. That's what I'm doing. And that's just not the case. When we're in this type of stage of awakening, prior to that, I need to go on a diet to lose some weight, or I need to do this to do that. And there's some truth to that. But also the soul is like, why don't we try this other frequency of intake of foodstuffs? I love that word, foodstuffs. So weird. So it's just that framing. And the way that we really do it well is by calling it a scavenger hunt. Taking it to an actual specific type of game, because it's a scavenger hunt for yourself. It's a scavenger hunt for your God, yourself as God. That's what it is. So everywhere we look, we're either drawn to or pushed away from a piece of ourself. That's why we look at anything. We are wondering where we are. Where am I here? Oh, you look like I do. What's your name? Can I keep you? Right, like that's sort of what we do. Because we sort of presume if it's like us, we should keep it. It must be a toy for us. We're children. So much like a child that it kind of is funny. It's really funny that we think we're grown-ups. Yeah. Everything raises us up. But we do this scavenger hunt. Eventually we realize we're done the scavenger hunt. And then we transcend into like essentially a new layering of scavenger hunt. If we're still here, I think it's safe to call it a scavenger hunt. Either that or we're helping guide other people. Happy I Love You Day. Thank you, Mr. Rogers. We're guiding other people on their scavenger hunt, which is our scavenger hunt. That's sort of my role, a little bit. Seems to be. To help a bit. To be like, here's how I play the game. I don't know what you guys are doing. Right? That's my kind of goal, is to be that transparent. Almost like a Twitch streamer streaming a video game. I'm like, here's how I beat this boss. That's sort of my goal, I guess, right? To keep it, and to try to keep it more light. We used to talk on this channel a lot more about the sadder things, the harder things. But I think people are getting to a place where it's more realistic and actually more better to affirm what is true and real now, not affirm our woundedness. We don't have to affirm how broken we are. And so when we perceive life as a drama, we tend to be doing that. We tend to be saying that some stuff in our life was so bad that we couldn't possibly see that there was value there or something. Or we see the value, but we still just haven't forgiven it. And that's okay. I'm not trying to push forgiveness on people. That's a really annoying thing, to be like, I don't know how to forgive that right now. And that's okay. And I would always my recommendation is always to get it out in a poem or writing. You don't have to give it to anyone. You can even burn it after, is a nice symbol of gesture, to be like, I've dumped all of this pain onto this page, and now it's gone from me. Like, I'm giving it to the fire spirits, to God. I'm giving it to divinity to just wash me clean of this. Have that intention, sit down, make it as sacred as you can. Do that. Burn it, and you'll feel better. You'll feel better. You might have to do it a couple times, right? Like, some of us have the deepest wells of these things pent up in us. So, yeah. We end up coming full circle to this cosmic midwifery state that we're in, where we're birthing into the star we are. And Arcturus usually guides us a lot with this. Arcturus is all about soul story and teaching. Oh, you're welcome, James. You're welcome. Yeah, it's really powerful practice. It's so simple, right? And some magicians are like, oh, you got to do the and like they don't get me wrong, it's all amazing, and I do some of it. I do some of that. Uh, but it's part of the trick of the mind, really, that these things must be done this way. It's not quite the case. What we really are wanting to try to look to do to be in a happy dream probably is the goal for now. Like maybe transcend the dream when we're ready, but right now, happy dream. Happy dream, we need to have the capacity to empty the cup of emotion. The cup fills up with emotion, and we have to empty that. We have to be able to let go of all the emotion. So we have to write something, sing songs, dance. We have to do something to get the emotion out. If we find ourselves like, if we listen to a sad song and we just, and we like cringe at it, there's probably way too much pent up emotion. If like way too much, because even just hearing a bit of a sad song triggers us to, oh, I gotta turn it off. It's not that's a big sign, I'm telling you. Because these songs are often some of the most beautiful things, but we like part of us kind of knows what it's going to bring up, and we avoid it. So, and that's okay. It's perfect. We avoid what we are meant to avoid. People talk about spiritual bypassing. That's a meaningless word. But what are you bypassing? There's nothing to bypass. You're here now. What are you talking about? You're talking about time that doesn't exist. Whatever. So let people rattle on about what you have to do, and then just play your game. Is my advice, you know? That's I think what we need to do. And really the best way to do that is really comes down to God and faith in God, building that relationship that although there is a game here I don't have control over, I do have a power watching my back, and I know it's there. And it's helping make sure that I'm walking in the right ways on this path. What if you've lost someone really close? You might never be able to listen to those songs. Oh yes, yeah. It is the same thing, but I respect it. It's the same. At one time, I'll just say my heart goes out because I understand completely. My brother-in-law, his sister passed away when she was 19. And there's a band that we grew up with named Closet Monster who wrote a song. I think they called it Melody, which was her name. Is her name. And it's so they wrote this song, and then also they played a Jimmy Eat World song, Hear You Me, or Hear Me You, or that one, in the funeral. And like it came on in the car, and her brother just punched me in the arm. That just figuring out what happened there took me like a month probably of like contemplation, like because I've always been very analytical of people. And so essentially it was so much emotion there that he just couldn't, no. And he's a dude, punches me, right? And he did it hard. And like, I was like, dude, I didn't choose this. You took it out on me, right? And it wasn't like he was attacking me, but it was not kind. And so I knew what had happened because I knew the song, I knew what it meant, but I didn't think of it. I didn't realize, like, I don't, you know? And so what I'm trying to say is that's okay. But I would also say that maybe that's how we explore that. If we feel up to it. If we feel up to it. There's no pressure to do that. I have that exact thing too. There's songs that remind me of certain people that are just gone. And old friendships. And I had a friend write a song about me in a metal band. And so I listened to that and just bawl my eyes out. So I get it. I get it very, very well. And because music's so powerful in our hearts and soul, it's like it can be a very spiritual experience for these things. Very spiritual. At least for me, if our soul sings in the harmonies of music, and I think all souls do, the more they open up, the more that the networks are all spinning, the more like even control over the voice. You can go down into the and all that stuff. Like you start to almost learn, not necessarily that you're a singer or anything like that, but you're using the power of sound. Wow. So you're using the power of sound to demonstrate as an instrument of harmony how a divine game is played. It's like kind of the goal. What's a Christy divine game look like? How do I do that here? And I got kids, and I got this, and I have that, and I want to do this. I'm going to do it now. It's happening now. I'm not waiting until like the kids are out in school, because then I can really focus on my. That's just, and this is just my personal framing. Sometimes we do have to do that. We do have to wait a little, and you know, I'm trying to say we don't have to wait. We choose to wait, and as long as we recognize it is a choice. It's all a choice to wait or to go or to rise or to sit in stasis or to ponder. It's all a choice, or contemplate, meditate, rage and fury at the world, let out your passions, bleed onto the paper and in ink, and say your feelings and give it to someone and hope that it hurts their feelings secretly, but really you just love something. And all of that stuff is, part of the game of like discovering ourselves. And then as we do that, we start to discover God more, right? So that it gets a lot more profound and deep and beautiful, and it just gets more and more expanding and more beautiful the more we look at our life as a harmonious thing we want to be doing, which is hard sometimes. I can't even tell you, like I was so, I'll just say I was so, back in the day I was young, but I was so sick of life that I might drop like the shampoo. It might slip out of my hand and I might think something like, I'll just kill myself over this. Like I used to be like that. So down that even something that small was, and I was just a kid basically, right? So I understand these feelings so well that it's, but what we do is we realize that like all of that is really where all my strength comes from now. Like, because I've seen all of that, I know that stuff really well. I've seen myself out of it. So I know other people can see themselves out of it by themselves. But also, I can probably help them because I've come out of that a little bit myself by using these types of frameworks. And I've shifted around a little bit. I've been like, okay, well, maybe it's a movie. Well, movies are, up and down with drama, funny, and all over the different genres. Okay, games are different genres too. Okay, like it's about finding your own framework on how to look at it, but trying to find one that you enjoy. And that's why I just say, get a game, give it a type of genre, but it's basically a scavenger hunt until you feel like you're done the game. And then you just kind of go, that was an interesting dream. And then you start to talk to the other soul that's near you, and he goes, I wonder if, and disappears. And you're like, oh, that's what he gets for asking questions. When the soul is in the stasis and unity with God, It just is, and it asks. Eventually, it goes, "I wonder about," and then it's off again. Once it gets curious, it's been in the bliss and joy of just the creator for long enough that it becomes all healed up and ready to. It's all integrated and it feels great and it's ready to do whatever, and then it gets inspired by a thought to go somewhere, and it's a thought of the creator that resonates with that soul, and that's why it departs. So I had this vision of like these two brother souls talking, and he was like, "Hey dude, so I heard of this place and it's like it's got all these like animals and stuff, they call them." And then the other guy's like, "Where is it?" And then he just disappears. And then the guy's like, "Oh shit, where'd he go?" And then they're both gone. Now you have two souls that are down there, run around as brothers looking for each other. And that's kind of a way to frame how some of that happens, because the souls make relationships with each other and grow and grow and grow. And there isn't, the soul becomes the oversoul, becomes always more as everything melds in together and is harvested from each consciousness entity. It builds this giant tree, and then we drop more seeds from the trees, the apples or whatever you could say, to create more, and just goes on and on and on. So so that's what happens when they are basically looking to come into the game. I wonder what it would be like to play a character in a game type thing, and then, oh, we got just the place for you here. You could do that here real well. Boom. That's the type of question a soul might ask before it incarnates here or chooses to take a wandering mission, starseed contract. I wonder what it would be like to help people that have no idea that they're angels. I wonder if there's anything I can do about this sorrow over there. Boom, there you are. Here, you could do this, you could do this, you could do this, you could do this. Counsel is, here are all of the things that we are currently allowing people to participate in. People, I say, souls, walk-ins, wanderers, starseeds, whatever. Here's the current things that are going on. Are you coming in? Okay. It's sort of like that. It's more automated than that, because it just aligns and just, so it's just boop, in goes the soul. Is a better way to see it. It's like, I wonder if I could, boom, there you're doing it suddenly. So we have to look at the temporal experience of our reality, step outside of time a bit, and like the easiest ways to do that is to literally just detach from it all in a non-attached way, not run away from it, but non-attachment to it. Like purposefully stop checking time, purposefully notice how fast it's going, how it's kind of meaningless, how each moment is just a little kind of, you might go from one room to another and talk to someone and then talk to a different person. It's like two separate little worlds that just happened in a moment of now. Like, it's, notice some of these things, which you've probably noticed already a little bit, or a lot, right? Time isn't a thing. So nothing's happening. So if nothing's happening, but stuff seems to be happening, then I guess it's a game. I hope it's a game. I'm playing a pretty fun game. And I think I'm doing it in a way that helps people. And that's it. I mean, what else am I supposed to do? Help people, my family, and right. So that's the framing I try to recommend. I think it's a really good one. All these beings, also James, all these beings exist. All of them, pretty much. So, infinite means infinite. It also means infinite descriptions of what is finite. And it means just confusion, mystery, intrigue. Atlantis sank, but we're like, don't necessarily have like evidence, do we? I don't think yet. I'm sure we will one day. We know that it's there, right? So maybe we do have evidence. If we do actually, and somebody knows of some actual evidence, I'd be really curious to see that of either Atlantis or Lemuria. I've seen some stuff that's like super old, 50,000 years old or something from prior to like Sumeria and stuff, ancient Sumeria. But anyway, I think that's about it for today for now. Thank you everyone for joining. I hope you guys have an excellent game and happy graduation. Happy graduation, Earth. Look at that. Boom. Floating up into the clouds. Look at that. That's a beautiful card. Oop. Beautiful. I love these cards. They're so great. And they're very honest. Very honest. A very honest deck. Thank you, everyone. Appreciate you so much. Soli Deo Gloria. Sending love.